welcome everyone on a global scale to everybody who's joining in today. What I would like to do is basically ask a question that we get very often when we talk to potential students and prospects for our programs. Where should I do my executive MBA program? Should I go to the US, start a program there? Should I take a program out of the European universe? And I would like to give you a couple of ideas of what to look for. Of course, I would also have some time set aside to talk about our Global Executive MBA program. And I'm very happy that Jennifer can join us today as she is the best testimonial to talk about the Global Executive MBA experience. Let me start off with three aspects which I think should be of major concern to you when you make your Executive MBA decision, and how European and US programs compare along those lines. Hold on a second, try to move on with my slides here. Yeah, basically three different things. First one, the diversity and internationality of the program. And when I say program, I mean, of course, the students sitting next to you in the classroom, but also the curriculum, where does the Executive MBA take you, and the faculty. Second, the work experience goes a little bit along the lines of the first point, saying who is sitting next to you in class in terms of experience, level of experience, what people can bring to the table and the classroom discussion. And last but not least, obviously a very important point, the cost aspect. Yeah? So how much tuition do I have to carve out of my budget? How long do I have to manage work and MBA journey? So these are the three aspects that I would like to highlight in the next couple of minutes. What we did in order to come up with this comparison is basically look at the Financial Times Executive MBA ranking, looking at the top 50 schools, and then compare US schools and European schools based on the criteria that Financial Times is using, because that's relevant, comparable data that's published. So the comparison is pretty easy to do, but it's also reliable in terms of the couple of dimensions that we're looking at. Let me start off with diversity and internationality. At this level, at the Executive MBA level, you do not only learn from the people in front of you, the faculty, the professors, yeah, but you also learn a lot, and I will come back to Jennifer later on this issue, from the people sitting next to you. Yeah, so where do those people come from? With what kind of background in terms of different countries, but also in terms of the different industries, functions they represent. And we pulled up a couple of facts from Financial Times ranking, comparing the two continents, if you so want. On the left side, you find US-based programs. On the right side, you find European-based programs, and the dark purple bullets basically give you an indication of where our Global Executive MBA positions itself in this universe, more or less. Let me look at the first component. US schools, typically very large home market, have 30% of international students. Yeah, that's a good number. When you look at European programs, that's about twice the amount. So you will most likely face a very international environment, people from different nationalities, many different nationalities, bringing their not only corporate experience, but also their cultural experience to the table. And think of it, doing business on a global scale today still means knowing cultural differences, knowing business behavior in different markets, in different countries, and your peers can be your first source of insight along those lines. In the Global Executive MBA, we are pretty happy to even outdistance the 60%, and you can think about 80% international students who, like Jennifer, fly in to Vienna for their modules and participate in the classroom setting. Two other indicators in terms of diversity and internationality, probably not as important for you as a student, but it says something about the institution. How many international board members are on the school board? Yeah. In the US, you have typically 20%, in Europe, 50% international board members, and it says something about, you know, the international outside of the organization in total. And most likely those international board members will also bring in their perspectives, but will also push internationality and diversity across the entire institution, and of course also the academic programs. Yeah, very important, I think, is, and more direct in terms of what you're going to experience, is the international course experience. What does that mean? So basically it means how many international assignments, international activities are incorporated in your program. Yeah. And typically you would find European schools in the top 30 along those along this criteria. Yeah, so the European schools are really strong on international exposure during the curriculum, taking you to different parts of the world in terms of residencies. And one fact that I would like to highlight here is that in terms of international course exposure, the Global Executive MBA actually ranks 13, so pretty high up, and that depends very much on the fact that we have a couple of international residencies incorporated in our program, and I'll talk a few more words later on. Yeah, so keep in mind, first important fact is look at the diversity in the student body in terms of where do people come from, which backgrounds do they bring to the table, because this is going to be a very strong influence on your learning experience. Second, what else should you be looking for? Work experience. Yeah. As I said before, people learn not only from the professors in front of you at this level, but the whole executive MBA experience lives on the exchange in the classroom, where everybody brings their experiences from their companies, countries to the table and discuss and share and help solve each other's challenges in a professional environment. So the more senior your colleagues in the classroom are, the more you will benefit from their experience, and the more, if you are a senior manager or executive, the more you will benefit, but also bring to the table your experience along those lines. The requirements are usually higher in terms of work experience from European schools. So the entry level in terms of what you have to have in order to participate in an executive MBA are higher, typically in European schools. That also, of course, reflects in the reality that that the actual student body has higher seniority, longer leadership positions. So it's not only professional experience, but also leadership position. And if you look at the rankings again, Financial Times, 8 of the top 10 programs ranked by work experience are European. And again, happy I am to say that we are part of these 10 top 10 programs in terms of work experience ranking very high. So if you look at the Global Executive MBA that we offer, pretty high in terms of international diversity, very high also in terms of seniority of participants, and that again contributes to the learning experience. Yeah, last but not least, before I then would like to turn over the word to Jennifer, a very important part is the cost-benefit ratio. Yeah, so how much do you have to invest into your executive MBA experience? We also see quite significant differences across the two continents. We do, of course, acknowledge that in the US, education has always been tuition-based, or many cases been tuition-based, while we in Europe have a tradition of at least your bachelor's degree, master's degree full-time in many countries is for free or at very small amounts of tuition. So I think that plays into the differences. But then it's simply also, I think, a competitive argument. Yeah, competition in Europe is quite high. Yeah, therefore, competitors have all similar price ranges to a certain extent. So when you look at the figures, you will also see that European programs on average are much less expensive than Americans, and our Global Executive MBA is within this range of the European programs. So this is in a nutshell what I would be looking for when deciding on an executive MBA program. Again, internationality, diversity, professional experience of your peers, and of course you have to do your calculations and your maths. One thing that I have not mentioned about the Global Executive MBA is basically with our program, you get the best of both worlds. As it is a double degree program, we are partnering with the Carlson School of Management. So you get the American experience, you get the European experience, and honestly speaking, for a European price ticket. So it's a pretty good price value relationship, I would say. I would ask Jennifer at that point to step in and basically tell us something about you. You know, you have been studying in the US at a different stage in your life. You are now studying in Europe. Maybe you want to comment on that, and probably also the aspects that I've touched upon so far before I then would say a few more words about the application process.
Yeah, so just to maybe give a bit of background about myself, I mean, I am an American who's been living and working in the Balkans, based in Belgrade for the last 17 years. And it was probably up to maybe even 5 years ago that I started to actually look into different MBA programs. And I kept thinking, you know, that I'd like to go back to the US to do it. But I mean, having, you know, work and family in Europe, you know, to take the time off and to go back to the US, it was, you know, kind of a bit difficult for me. So I started looking into, you know, European programs and what was available. I had actually taken a trip to Italy and had been at a university there that was affiliated with Stanford. And I was like, wow, that's such a great, you know, idea that they've affiliated themselves with these US universities. And I started looking into the program. And for me, it was just logistically difficult actually to go to Bologna to do that. And also it wasn't, you know, an executive program that allowed you that, you know, flexibility to fly in on a monthly basis. So I started looking around at what else was available. And I came upon the VEU program, the executive MBA, and I was just blown away because actually being a Minnesota native and having gotten my bachelor's degree from the University of Minnesota, I know exactly, you know, what the school is about and what they have to offer and what their reputation is in the US. So for me, it was just, you know, the program was just a perfect fit for, you know, having spent 17 years in an area of Europe that's not that well known. I mean, it really rounded out this whole international experience. And, you know, the MBA was just sort of this point that I felt that, you know, I wanted to do this so that I could, you know, take my career to its next step. So for me, the program was just perfect. And, you know, then I had reached out to the program management at that time just to sort of inquire, like, what does the you know, application process entail and this and that. And I mean, then I just kind of got put into the machine at VEU, and the next thing I know, I was enrolled in the program, and I was like, whoa, this is a little bit fast. So I did, yeah, take a year to actually wrap my head around the fact that I was going to be a student again. So I joined the following year's cohort, actually. So, but yeah, I had gone to Vienna for an interview with the program manager at the time. And I mean, the campus is amazing. Vienna is just a city that, you know, it's really just a pleasure to have a reason to go there every month. So for me, that was, you know, some of the big things. And then one of the big selling points was, of course, I mean, I think the Carlson program, and I had actually looked into relocating back at that time. And I was looking at the different programs offered by the University of Minnesota, and the Carlson program was actually twice the price that VEU is offering, and you also get both degrees, which you don't get when you study in the US. So for me, those were all just really big advantages, because I would like to continue with my career in Europe, and having the European degree is also a big selling point. I mean, I really appreciate, I mean, I actually, you know, on the first day of class, I was really surprised that I wasn't the oldest person in the room. So for me, that was really pleasant, actually, you know, from having my expectations be somewhere around, you know, mid-20s to early 30s, to having a cohort that was probably, you know, early 30s to mid-40s. That was pretty nice. And
if I can, I just at this point interrupt. So just to give add another figure, the average age in the Global Executive MBA is 37. Yeah. So, and again, with all the facts that I've presented before, in the European programs, executive MBA students tend to be more senior in terms of not only age, but work experience and so on. But maybe you can say a few words about, this seniority level, not only in terms of age, but experience, and how that basically the international diversity and also the professional experience affected your personal learning experience.
Yeah, well, the program, I mean, what I really appreciate about the program, and actually at this point, because I'm part of the current cohort, so we're now just beginning our work on this global, the master thesis, the global team project. So we're now in touch with our US colleagues and with our Chinese colleagues. And, in those terms, I mean, the international network that you get with the three countries, it's great. But I think that the Vienna program by far offers the best experience in those terms, because just the fact that, I think you said 80% of the class is international. I mean, most of us are flying in. So we have, our 4 days that are dedicated to this. So we are working together during the day. We're spending our evenings together. And, in terms of networking, which is a big part of the program, I mean, the quality of the networking that you get with that kind of time spent together as a group it's really, I think, a lot better than what some of the other programs are offering. I mean, in terms of what I've heard from the Americans and the Chinese, I mean, it's definitely, one of the advantages of the Vienna program.
And maybe you can say a few words of whether you have benefited from the program already professionally. I mean, the discussions in the classroom setting with so many seasoned managers and executives, has that given you extra inspiration, solved after some of the challenges that you have, or could you contribute to your colleagues' business challenges in a way?
Well, that's another good thing about the program, is that the work is really structured around teams. So coming in, you're working with a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds, different levels of professional experience. In some areas where you're weaker, your teammates are a lot stronger and they can help you through. So, I mean, that's really, really a nice part of the program. I think that the group work also, especially in today's global business arena, it's really a reflection of real life in terms of, working in virtual teams, working with people who are in different, situations in their life, who have different levels of dedication, who have different work ethic, who have different schedules. So just being able to make that kind of thing work, I think it actually, it's really beneficial to your career and your real life situation as well. So I think that it's really a really, really nice program.
And probably to add one aspect to it, I mean, if you know each other so well, and socializing and networking, as you mentioned in the evenings, is of course a very important part of the whole experience. Do you find it also that that those people are then basically people you can go back to for professional advice, for private advice? Is that something that you already see coming up, or is that not so?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely something that already comes up. I mean, I know that just, even on private level things, when some people are good at certain areas, you just pop them a question really quick, and usually everybody is really willing to help out. I mean, it's really nice. Yeah. And in terms of also the difference between the three programs that are affiliated with the Carlson School, I think that the international residencies offered by WU are also one of the bigger benefits. And it's another point where it stands out against the other two programs, because as I understood, the Chinese and the American program only have the one international residency, whereas we have three of them. So, and just, the cohesion that you get as a team coming together outside of your own individual working groups is also a big benefit of going on these international residencies. And I mean, the experience that you get, I mean, having just returned from China and India, and thank God we're all coronavirus free. But yeah, it was just, a completely different experience to that, what you would get on a touristic level. So, the company visits, having that sort of, and you are only just scratching the surface, but you get such a feel for, the inner workings of how business is done in these markets, where the whole global economy is headed. So, I mean, for me, this was one of the biggest advantages of the program.
I will say a few more words about the residencies. One thing that I know that usually always comes up in the Q&A session at the latest, You are a very busy professional. We heard you're a consultant, you have a family. How do you manage to fit the executive MBA into your life?
Well, to be honest, it's a struggle. I mean, it takes up a lot of my time. I can't say there's a really big time commitment. And I think when they tell you at the university that it's like 20 hours a week or something like that, I mean, they're not even kidding. I didn't expect it to be so big, but yeah, it takes up my evenings and my weekends, and my kids, you know, they don't eat for me anymore, but they'll survive the 15 months. And that's a really nice thing, that it's only 15 months and not 2 years. So, but my kids are a little bit older, so.
Yeah, what I've heard is that that people basically become incredibly effective and efficient, and you can you see how much time there is in a day or in a night and on weekends. But it definitely is a strong burden, but doable if I understand you correctly.
Yes, it's doable. And it's actually, I mean, to be honest, the MBA is probably one of the best things that I've ever done for myself. I mean, I'm so happy that I took this on. I mean, the learning outcomes that we've had from the classes, just, I mean, it's all been so, you know, motivating and inspiring that I'm really thrilled with the whole experience.
Yeah, I'm very happy to hear that. Of course, I'm pretty sure that some people are already eager to hear how they can apply for the program. So let me help them out with some pieces of information here and explain really briefly. And you started touching upon it on how it is that you get in touch with us and how you get into the program. Before I do that, just really briefly, as you mentioned, the international residencies, this is definitely something we are feeling very strongly about as being part of the curriculum. You saw that also reflected in the Financial Times ranking in terms of international course experience. So as the name is Global Executive MBA, we take our students to different parts of the world to immerse themselves within a week or two into the local business environment, talk to academics on the ground there to experience what they have to share about these economies, but also, of course, get in touch with real businesses, managers, validate your own professional experiences, but also see how business is done in different parts of the world. So we typically start out in Latin America, many times in Argentina and Brazil as two major economies with their unique challenges in the region. We then move on, as Jennifer said, to Asia, China and India. Made it back home without the coronavirus, thank God. Very interesting two countries, both really big in size, very different in terms of economic setup. And we are going to round it out in the US, in Minneapolis, with our partners from the Carlson School, and also the first graduation there. So Jennifer's already in her final stretch, right? Yeah, then let me say a few words about the application process. Basically, we want to make sure that you make an educated choice when you start your executive MBA with us. So what you see here is the formal application process, but I'll come back to that, how you can start getting in touch with us even before that. Yeah, so the formal application process is you find our online application documents online. You download the package, you submit the documents that usually is a letter of motivation, your CV, 2 recommendation letters. We look through your applications on paper, and then in the next step, you would be invited to an interview on campus, where we give you an opportunity to present yourself, but you also get the chance to talk to us, to see our wonderful campus, really an inspiring learning environment, I find. And then the final decision, basically, that we take together with our US colleagues from Carlson School as you get to be enrolled in both programs. Before that, so for many of our applicants, that's the last step in a conversation that we have with you, because we want to really make sure the decision is not something to take lightheartedly. You usually only do an executive MBA, any MBA once in your life, so we wanted to make the right decision for you. So there are various ways to get in touch with us. One would be to join us at an event if you're in the Vienna region. We also have events in different parts of the world. If you want to get in touch with us, with our alumni, that's a great opportunity to take on. We can also connect you with alumni. So if you say, I'm coming from this region, I work in this in that industry. I would like to speak to somebody with my background, similar background, or I want to relocate, or I want to start a new business, whatever it is that you're looking for in your executive MBA journey. We can connect you with alumni from the program who have been through this decision-making process through the entire journey and can basically help you make your own decision. Yeah, so again, that's a very good source of information. This is why we have Jennifer here today. Yeah, we have lots of other alumni that you can reach out to, and we can connect you based on the requirements or questions that you have. Yeah, you can also join a class. Yeah, so we call it Test Drive Your Executive MBA. So you get an opportunity to sit in class for a certain period of time. You can get engaged with students there. You can talk to faculty, to program managers, whatever it is. So really, there are lots of opportunities. Or if you're not even that far, send us your CV, get in touch with us, schedule a date for a conversation. We're really happy and eager to help you to make sure that you make the best decision you can. I think, Jennifer, that would be my final statement. Is there anything that you still have to add? Else, we're looking forward to lots of questions in the Q&A session.
Yeah, I think we can move to Q&A.
Great. Thank you very much for this nice presentation. It was a pleasure to hear all of those interesting facts. And I would like to ask all of the participants to type in their questions in the questions panel. There's a small box Q&A. When you click on it, you will be able to type in all of your questions. And we already have a few that built up during the session. So I will start with them, and we'll be expecting more questions to come. There is a question from Avijoy, and he's asking if GMAT is a requirement for admission.
Let me answer that question. We usually do not expect you to do a GMAT for various reasons. We strongly believe that GMAT has a very strong rationale in a certain period of your life. So if you're coming out of your bachelor's degree, you're fresh graduate, you've worked a few years, and then you go for an MBA, I think that's the time when the GMAT is a very valid source of information in terms of your qualification. We believe more strongly in your overall package in terms of your professional experience, what you bring to the table, and in rare cases where we do have, you know, some questions regarding your level of English or whatever it is, or you're probably on the less senior side, then we would ask you for the executive assessment test. That's very similar to the GMAT, but the executive version of the test that's more targeted in terms of the way how the questions are set up to an executive audience.
Perfect. As there is a question here that is probably more directed to Jennifer. Tell us a bit more about your business as an example of how your career was affected by the EMBA program.
Well, I'm a management consultant, so I mean, all of the concepts that we're learning about in class is, you know, something that I take back to my day-to-day work. So, I mean, just, you know, the theory behind it, the practical cases that we're studying, I mean, all of it you can, you know, put into your sort of everyday life and see how you would react to different, you know, situations. So in those terms, I mean, it's very valuable. And then in terms of, you know, the network that we've made, I mean, it also opens up our network to different areas where we haven't had a network previously, which brings up new opportunities on their own in new, you know, areas where you can, you know, actually expand your business. So in those terms, it's also very useful.
Okay, great. We also have.
I probably add one more comment. I think what is important to realize with the network, basically, you all have a professional network in your industry, but what an executive MBA can give you, anyone, and that's not particularly specific to ours, is basically a network that's very diverse, but very profound, you know, as those people that come from different industries, countries, you would usually never have that much diversity in your regular professional network. And what's specific to our program is that basically you get part of the VU Executive Academy alumni community, and also from the Carlson School alumni community. So you really have a global network in different countries from both institutions.
Okay, great. I will again ask for the audience to ask their questions by using the Q&A part of the platform. You can find it on the bottom of your screens. We have another question, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more about this duality of the degree that the participants get. You mentioned that you have a partnership with an American university, but what part of the education goes on there, and what part of the education goes on in Austria? And there is also a question about the living expenses in both places. So basically, what they should, what costs they should foresee for living and studying in both of those places.
Maybe I take the first part of the question regarding the double degree format. So basically, what it is you are going to be enrolled as a VU student in Europe. You are going to be enrolled as a US student in the US at the Carlson School of Management, and you get a degree from both institutions. So you will have a European, a Viennese degree, you will have a US degree from Carlson. Yeah, so this is what's meant by double degree. In reality, how does that play out? We have 50% VU faculty from our side. We have 50% of Carlson faculty. The teaching location is Vienna most of the times if we're not on international residencies. So that means American faculties fly in to Vienna for their modules. Yeah, so you would be based in Vienna most of the times. US faculty from the Carlson School flies in, delivers their modules. So that's how the setup works. And the last residency, as I showed, is going to the US, to the Carlson School, where you have a 10-day module in New York and Minneapolis, where you are working on the ground in our partner institution with faculty from Carlson and take part in the US graduation for your US degree. In terms of living expenses, that's a pretty challenging question. There is not too much I can say about it. It really depends a little bit on where you come from. But if you have any further question along those lines, drop us a line and we can fill in with statistics later on. Jennifer, maybe you want to say a few words about your travel expenses or how you manage when you are here in Vienna, where do you stay? How does that add up to your budget and so on?
Yeah, just so in terms of, you know, how I manage it, I live and I work where I live and I work, and then I fly in monthly for the module. I usually have to fly in the evening before because of logistics. So there's a really nice hotel that's just right across from campus. So I would typically just stay there, and the university has really good corporate rates that they offer us with breakfast. And I mean, those are the only expenses that I have. I mean, we have the schedule up front. So basically, you know, you can watch for, you know, airline ticket sales and get, you know, as good of a price as you can get for, you know, the tickets. I mean, I've already bought all of mine up until July. So, and then the hotel is around, I think, 82 euros a night. So it's very reasonable. And basically your expenses are just, you know, food and drinks, and not even that much because the VU provides us with so much food and drinks that we hardly go out.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sometimes students complain that they're put on weight because of the food during the MBA. I'm not so sure whether that's true. But I think
I did.
But something that you've mentioned, I think, is important, and we have not touched upon that. So the schedule that you know exactly in advance when you have to be in Vienna. So that makes it easier for you to also plan your business travel, your other commitments around it. So when you enter the program, you already know everything about when to be here, when to be on residency, and so on. That makes it a little bit easier to implement or to insert the MBA into your professional and private life.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
and I would just have to say one more thing, that, you know, the schedule doesn't change. So that's really nice, because, you know, then it's pretty much, once it's out there, it's set in stone.
Great. Sounds like a very enriching and interesting experience in any case. There is a question here from one of our participants. What is the preferred experience to do the executive MBA?
Maybe you can clarify that with another comment a little bit later. Let me just tell you a few words about the participants in our program. So basically, in terms of backgrounds, you have to have a bachelor's degree. There are some exceptions to that case, but that would be really looked into on a specific case-by-case basis. But basically, you have a bachelor's degree from any background. Yeah, so about 30% of our students have a business degree as a background. 70% not, come from very different academic backgrounds. Can it be in law, in medicine, in life sciences, engineering, technical degrees, whatever. Yeah. But even those who have a business degree say the first time around when they studied those topics, they were really in a very different situation in their life, just starting out with their academic education. And now with this experience of 10, 15 years, you look at those topics very differently, and you have a particularly strong practical experience. And that again makes the content, when you hear the second time around, in a different shape and form, even again very valuable. So that's what I can say about the background, but maybe you want to clarify a little bit more in detail if that was not the question you were asking me.
Okay, we will be expecting a clarification from maybe Joy, who asked the question to clarify what he meant by experience. I would guess that he would also be interested to know how many years of working experience is the minimum to get admitted to the program.
So basically what you see on the screen right now, you should see the minimum is 5 years for the executive MBA. Yeah. And I say that's really the minimum requirement. When you look at the actual work experience, our participants are on average 37 years, have around 15 years of experience, 5 years of leadership experience, with outliers to both ends. Yeah, so sometimes we have participants where we would assume they're high potentials, they might be younger, less experienced, but they have something else to bring to the table. But it is quite a senior cohort, I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Another question is from Mr. Habibi. He is asking us, is there a period graduates can stay in the country in case they need to switch careers after the program?
In Austria, there is what's called the so-called Rot-Weiß-Rot-Karte. So to translate, that is red, white, red card, coming from the colors of the national flag. And basically, with a degree in Austria, you can stay on for, I think it's 2 years, but we can follow up with the exact information to, you know, look for work, look for a job here, in order to, you know, leverage your education in Austria also into this local environment.
Okay. Another question from an anonymous attendee is how many hours on average, weeks, months, whatever, students are expected to put in outside of the VU sessions? How much time students should commit to studying themselves? Is there a rough estimate or an idea about this?
Maybe I can take that one. So I probably put in close to 20 hours a week. I usually devote my weekends to that, and I have my 8-hour days that I do on the weekends, and then whatever I haven't managed to do over the weekend, I do in the evenings during the week.
So I think that's a pretty fair estimate. And when we ask our students and alumni, they would come up with 15 to 20 hours. Yeah? And keep in mind, you're here voluntarily, you put a lot of money on the table. So it's usually not something that that we push you for, but you push yourself. And it also probably varies a little bit from module to module based on your background and experience. So if you're working in finance, then the financial modules will be less cumbersome or less a burden for you than operations or any other module. So it might also vary. But again, Jennifer is the best source to answer that question.
Great. Yes, indeed. Experience talks better than anything else. There is a question from Patricia who is asking us to, if you can tell us a little bit more about the program. What exactly will they learn? How is the program organized and structured?
Jennifer, do you want to take this one, or do you want me to explain the basic structure?
If you want to explain the basic structure, then I can talk about maybe some of the takeaways that I've had from the program.
Mm-hmm. So basically, the setup is as follows. It's organized along modules. Yeah, core module, what we call, is the time that you spend on campus. Usually 4 days, Thursday to Sunday, once a month. Yeah, so that's on average the schedule. Before you come to Vienna for the core module session, you have preparatory work, which we call pre-module. So you can think of it as homework to get you prepared for the topic, you know, to make sure that everybody who comes to class has a similar level of background reading information, that the discussion can start already at a higher level, and everybody, you know, is able to connect to the content. These pre-module assignments can be individual, can be group assignments. Very often are group assignments, as Jennifer has mentioned. So the nice thing is that you can, you know, if finance is not of your core business, but you will have a finance person in your group, makes your preparation easier. And the same goes with the post-module assignment, where you implement what you have learned into your professional environment. Again, very often group work. So this schedule, basically once a month, is interrupted or complemented by the international residencies. As you've seen, 3 of them spread across the program. This is usually a week or 2 where we're going to different parts of the world, as I explained before. And there you basically will be very busy, you know, visiting companies, talking to executives, but also sitting in the classroom and working on topics that are relevant for that part of the region. Last but not least, there is the so-called GTP, Global Team Project. This is what Jennifer has also referred to, working with their with the US and the Chinese colleagues. It is the master thesis. So basically it's a group project about the business case. You develop your own idea of what you want to bring to the market, to international markets, and you basically develop a business case around this idea. This idea can come from your professional background, from your colleagues' professional backgrounds. You can think about a startup idea, yeah, and this is basically starting in the second half of your program and will be presented in the Minneapolis residency in May. So about 4 to 5 months work on this project next to the curriculum, more or less. Anything from your side, Jennifer, to add to that?
Yeah, well, I think that just like in terms of the coursework, like, you know, it breaks down business into theory into a way that maybe we haven't thought about it before on, you know, our day-to-day, you know, working. So for me, it was really interesting, you know, when we started the program. I mean, you start with leadership, and that's kind of, you know, a nice introduction. And then you get right into the statistics, or what they now call business analytics. And I remember being very overwhelmed by that class. But now in retrospect, I see that almost everything else that we've done in the MBA builds on that. So in those terms, you know, I really like the way that, you know, the theory is mixed together. I mean, the classes are structured so that, you know, you've got, you know, you're laying the groundwork and the foundation for the other classes. And then there's a really nice mix of theory from the professors. And this is maybe where expectations get a little bit, you know, mixed up, because people come into class thinking that there's going to be a lot of, you know, really specific business cases, but the professors are giving us a lot of theory. They're complementing it with the business cases. And then what is really useful is that the VU actually organizes guest lectures in the evenings in a way that complement what we've been, you know, discussing in terms of theory in class. So that's also a really nice part of the whole structure of the program.
Okay, great.
If I may add to that, I think that's again along the lines of what I said in terms of professional experience of participants. Yeah, the faculty are there to basically familiarize everybody with the state-of-the-art theory concepts, and you bring in your professional experience and see how that relates to the challenges that you're facing, and trying to leverage or find an angle how to leverage that into your professional environment.
Great. Okay. We also have a question from Danielle, who is asking us, is it mandatory to travel to the US and Asia, or we can choose to take only the courses in Austria?
Let me answer that. No, there is no choice, because we think it's an integral part of the program. Yeah. And maybe you, Jennifer, you can say not only why it's required to go there, but why it's fun and rewarding to go there. So there is no choice. It's basically, you have to go there together with your cohort, with your group, as it adds to the group experience. And it also is a very important part of the learning experience.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, I mean, it really gives you a different perspective. You really feel the pulse of those markets, and you feel how business works there, and you get a feel for the cultural differences. And I mean, these are just things that you can't get a feel for from a book. So, I mean, you really need to go and to experience, and, you know, it's just a really valuable part of the overall MBA experience.
Indeed, the EMBA is more about experiencing and experiential learning and feeling the markets rather than the theory of business. I will ask our participants to add their final questions as we are coming to an end to the Q&A session. So please type in any last questions that you have in mind to our speakers while I'm asking the final questions that emerged. You can ask by clicking the Q&A icon there on the bottom of the screen. We have a question here about African applicants. Can African applicants also apply to the EMBA program? Are there any limitations, in particular for Kenya?
Well, my question would be, why not? Yeah, so there is a current student in Jennifer's class coming from South Africa. I think what it is that probably sometimes, and that's not limited to African students, there might be some visa issues, etc. This is something that we have to clarify on a country-by-country basis. We do support you with documents that you need for your visa application. So that's something that we are quite familiar with, but we would have to look at the individual case. Jennifer, any insights on our student from South Africa, or?
Nothing in particular. I mean, I don't know that he's had any kind of visa issues. I know some of our ex-Russian Federation colleagues have had some visa issues. We have a couple of Iranian colleagues who've had some visa issues. But as I understood, it's really handled on a case-to-case basis, and they're getting maximum support from the faculty. And if they're not able to work it out, they have the option to follow up on it in another year, in another program. That's correct.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, again, you know, it adds to the diversity of the program, of the student cohort. So again, this is something that you have to decide. If you have a chance to move to Austria professionally, if you're flying in, the colleague who's from South Africa at the moment flies in for every module, that does work out. Yeah? And not only him from Africa, but we have people from all parts of the world basically coming in. So therefore, you know, it's more your personal the way how you can set up the program together with your professional experience and professional work. And if you have any questions along those lines, just reach out to us. I pulled up the slide once again with our email address. So if you have any questions, then please come forward, and we'd be happy to work with you on your questions on the points that are still open.
Of course, any personal questions concerning the state of each of the applicants would be addressed via email. It's not a problem at all. You will have all of the contacts of the speakers. We have a question here by Danielle, who is asking us, is it too late to apply for the 2020 courses? Has she found out about this program recently?
Danielle, you have to be moving really fast. Yeah. So the official application deadline is tomorrow. We do have quite a pipeline, but you know, we're always looking for great applications. So if you want and you move quickly, send us your CV. We will look at it. We will give you a really quick evaluation of what we see there. We will consult you on saying, okay, good idea, or wait a little longer, and then we take it from there. But we really urge you to move fast.
Okay, indeed. Tomorrow is quite soon, but I'm sure that a good profile is always worth extending some of the deadlines for. Another thing that, a final question, one of the final questions, if we don't have any more, Abijor is asking us a question about the structure of the fees. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the payments that are needed for starting the program. Is it in installments? Or how can the fee be paid, and what is it in total with all of the trips?
Let me just talk about the fee structure, and probably, I mean, Jennifer has talked about the travel expenses and so on. So basically what the tuition fee of the 49,000 euro covers is whatever you are needing to do your academic experience. That means, you know, the books, the materials, the catering during the breaks while you're here studying on campus. We also, when we go on residencies, we provide logistics on the ground while we're there. So if we go with a bus from place to place, from company to company, that's basically part of it. What you have to cover is your own travel, yeah, travel and accommodation, be it to Vienna or the international residency is entirely up to you, yeah. So we've seen that students, you know, form their groups, share rooms, etc. So there is a way to make the whole thing a little bit more economical. And when we talk about the payment plan, this is usually something that we arrange with you, yeah. So you can either pay at once, you can pay in 3 installments. They have fixed dates, but we also basically work together with you on your specific situation. In some countries, you can leverage your educational expenses towards your taxes. So that's something where we can accommodate your needs. But once we have basically developed and you have signed the payment plan, this is then what we both stick to.